GST registration, the primordial step into GST. It is through this GST registration that you bring yourself into the ambit of the law. It is through registration that you become eligible to collect tax from the customers. It is through registration that you can claim the benefit of ITC that you pay to your vendors. And it is only when you're registered under GST that you can engage in certain notified transactions. Hi, I am CA Apurva Jaisamha and you're with me on G for GST. In this video, let me take you through the basic understanding of GST registration. Who should take a GST registration, who need not take a GST registration, and in what instances is GST registration mandatory. What are the checkpoints that you have to exercise while applying a GST registration, and what are the common mistakes that people do. This is not a video on the process of getting a GST registration. There is a lot of content on it out there. We are here to tell you what not to do while getting a GST registration. So let's get started. GST registration is a threshold-based concept since the time of its inception, in a sense that you would be required to take a GST registration only when your turnover crosses a notified threshold. At the inception of GST, this turnover threshold was pegged at 20 lakhs for all suppliers of goods and services. For special category states, it was pegged at 10 lakh rupees. However, as time progressed, law evolved, the government acknowledged that this turnover threshold is too scanty a number. So, in the 32nd GST Council meeting, the turnover threshold limit was proposed to be doubled to 40 lakh rupees. Wide notification number 10 of 2019 central tax in the month of March 2019, this turnover threshold was doubled to 40 lakh rupees for normal category of states. However, an important point to be remembered here is that for the first time ever, GST made a distinction between who is a supplier of good and who is a supplier of service. The turnover threshold for taking a GST registration in case you are into the service sector remains status quo. It was 20 lakh rupees and is continuing to be 20 lakh rupees. What has changed to 40 lakhs is only when you are a supplier of goods, an exclusive supplier of goods. For all the normal category states, the GST turnover threshold for supplier of goods was made 40 lakh rupees effective April 2019. However, the central government left it to the discretion of the respective states as to whether they would want to opt for this 40 lakhs limit or not. So all the normal category states except Telangana and Kerala have opted for this 40 lakhs limit. Essentially meaning that if you are a supplier in the state of Telangana, the turnover threshold for GST registration is pegged at 20 lakh rupees only, whether you are into goods or into services. So in a nutshell, this is how the turnover threshold limits are placed today amidst normal category states and special category states, amidst suppliers of goods and suppliers of services for the purposes of taking a GST registration. I reiterate that when the supplier is into the service sector, the turnover threshold continues at 20 lakh rupees only. The turnover threshold has been made 40 lakhs only for the persons who are engaged in exclusive supply of goods. So if you are a normal category state such as Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Delhi, Bihar, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Haryana, Goa, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, the turnover limit is at 40 lakh rupees. Normal category states such as Kerala and Telangana are the only two states who have continued to operate at 20 lakhs limit. If you are a special category state such as Puducherry, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, Sikkim, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, the turnover limit for supply of goods has been pegged at 20 lakh rupees. The turnover limit for supply of services continues at 10 lakh rupees. So now we know who should take a GST registration. Next, let's roll the ball to who need not take a GST registration. categories of persons who are exempted from taking a GST registration. So often it so happens that there is a person who is engaged in making exclusively exempt transactions, that is exempt supply of goods and exempt supply of services. Exempt supply of goods or services are those goods and services on which government has removed GST. In the larger interest of the public, government says do not pay GST on fruits and vegetables, do not pay GST on education sector, do not pay GST on healthcare sector, do not pay GST on certain functions that the government is providing. So in all these sectors and many more, there is no GST because these have been made exempt. Goods like petrol, diesel, crude oil are non-taxable in nature because they have been kept out of GST. So when a person is engaged in making exclusively exempt supplies, it means that no matter what his turnover is, he never attracts the liability to pay GST. So these are the categories of people who exclusively engage in making exempt supplies or non-taxable supplies, who never have the liability to pay GST. So in such circumstances, irrespective of your turnover, that is even if your turnover is exceeding 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs as the case may be, you would still not be required to take a GST registration, because even if you do so, government is not going to get a single rupee out of you. The next category of people who need not take a GST registration are our very own agriculturists. The next category of people who are exempted from taking a GST registration are those persons whose outward supplies are liable to GST, but they are liable to GST in the hands of the recipient under reverse charge mechanism. Reverse charge mechanism and the transactions covered thereunder is a separate leg of study in itself. However, it is important to note that when the recipient is vested with the responsibility to pay GST under reverse charge, the supplier will no longer be required to pay GST. You have illustrative lists such as the goods transport agents, the security agency, renting of a motor vehicle, insurance agent, banking recovery agent are all these categories where the recipients pay GST on behalf of the supplier. So when the supplier is engaged in making these transactions, it means the supplier does not have any liability to pay GST. The entire GST on that transaction is paid by the recipient on behalf of the supplier. So in such case, even if the supplier's turnover exceeds the threshold limit of 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, there is absolutely no need to take a GST registration, because even if they do, the entire GST is paid by their recipients. Next up, we will see those categories of people or transactions which, when you engage, you would attract the concept of mandatory registration, compulsory registration. That is, you would be required to take a GST registration even if your turnover does not exceed the threshold limit. So what are these categories of persons? So next up, we will look into those categories of transactions or persons who are mandatorily required to take a GST registration. This is the category of persons who should compulsorily take a GST registration, notwithstanding what your turnover is. That is, even if your turnover is below the threshold limit, you will be compelled to take a GST registration. The idea behind this concept is that when you engage in these transactions, you essentially break the bubble of being a small taxpayer. The government has imposed a threshold limit of 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, keeping in view that it should not become burdensome for a small taxpayer. But when you engage in these transactions, you break the bubble and tell the government that you're capable of taking a GST registration, issuing tax invoices, availing credits, filing 3 returns every month. So these are the categories of persons who are required to mandatorily take a GST registration. This list of mandatory registration includes persons who make interstate taxable supply of goods. Mind you, it is a person who makes interstate taxable supply of goods. So if a person is in the service sector and is having clients and customers from other states, he can very well engage with them without having to be compulsorily registered under GST. The mandatory registration clause is applicable only if you are engaged in interstate taxable supply of goods. The next up in this list is transactions where the recipients have to pay GST under reverse charge. Instances where you have to take an input service distributor registration. The next up in this list is where persons are required to do GST TDS compliance. Electronic commerce operators are required to be mandatorily registered under GST for the purposes of TCS compliance. Persons who supplies their goods or services through electronic commerce operators, except certain exemptions, are also required to take GST registration mandatorily. Casual taxable person, non-resident taxable person are also mandatorily to take a GST registration. Each clause that we have discussed is a separate area of study in itself. But the gist here is that GST registration is not entirely threshold based. GST registration is attracted even when you engage in these transactions. So to all the taxpayers out there who are very well within the threshold limit and are under the delusion that you do not have to be registered under GST, please check whether you're already engaging in any of these transactions. It means that you have already triggered the requirement to be mandatorily registered under GST. Voluntary registration. The GST mechanism also allows you to take a voluntary registration, a registration taken suo motu. That is when your turnover is very well within the threshold limit and you're otherwise not required to take a compulsory registration under section 24. Still, for some reason, if a supplier intends to take a registration voluntarily, then that is also possible under GST. The next step is how to take a GST registration. Like we already told, I'm not going to show you the process of taking a GST registration because that you will get elsewhere. But I'm only going to summarize it to you in 2 steps. GST registration is a 2-stage process. The first one is generation of a temporary reference number, also called as a TRN. Now many people out there are under the delusion that the moment TRN is generated, I am registered under GST, which is not the case. TRN, like the name itself reads, is a temporary number which will be valid only for 15 days. You have to use this TRN, log into the portal, fill the entire registration application, get an ARN and then penultimately get your GST registration certificate. So TRN is not your GST number. It is just a method through which you will file your registration application. Generation of a TRN is also a 2-step process. It simply requires you to give your basic information like what type of a taxpayer are you, in which state do you want to be registered, what is your PAN number, what is the name as per the PAN number, what is your email ID, what is your mobile number, a simple OTP verification and a TRN stands generated. Now, this is adequate information about generation of a TRN and your entry into the GST registration activity. Let's look at the nitty-gritties involved in GST registration. The first and foremost, within how many days should I take a GST registration? GST registration has to be applied for within 30 days from the date of the trigger event. So in case your turnover threshold is exceeding the 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, or you have suddenly engaged in an interstate transaction which requires you to be mandatorily registered, in such cases it is advisable that you apply for registration within 30 days. Now you may ask me, what are the benefits of applying for registration within 30 days? I can as well apply for registration after 30 days. The nitty-gritty here is that if you apply for GST registration within 30 days, your GST registration will have a backdated effect. Essentially, you will get the benefit of claiming input tax credit of all the stock that is lying in hand as on the date when your trigger has happened. The next question is, how many days is this GST registration valid? Does it have an expiry date? A big no. GST registration is eternal, it is perpetual. Once a GST registration has been taken, till such time you yourself wish to opt out of GST, it will continue to be valid. There is no requirement to keep renewing your registration, nor does it have any expiry date. Voluntary registration also comes with a set of nitty-gritties. More often than not, people are seen with a delusion that since I have taken a GST registration voluntarily, that is even before my turnover exceeds the given threshold, I need not have to collect tax till such time, I do not have to claim ITC till such time, I do not have to file my returns till such time. This is the biggest misunderstanding that is prevalent. A very important thing to be noted here is that once you are registered under GST, you become a taxable person. And every taxable person is required to issue tax invoice, is required to collect GST from customers, is required to account and reconcile the input tax credit, is required to file 3 returns every month. So even though you have opted for GST registration suo motu voluntarily, you are not exempted from the compliances that come along with it. The next important question that people have is, in how many states do I have to take a GST registration? I have branches in 3-4 states in India. How many registrations do I have to take? Can I operate my GST and the business thereon from a single centralized registration? Unfortunately, the answer is no. GST registration does not function in a centralized manner. You are required to take a GST registration in every state where you have a branch from where you are making a supply. So if you have a head office in Telangana and branch offices in Karnataka, Mumbai, Rajasthan and Delhi, then you are required to take a GST registration in all these states owing to the concept of aggregate turnover. The next question up is, I am based only out of Telangana, but I have my customers who are all over India. In such a case, in how many states do I have to take a GST registration? The answer is quite simple. If you are based in Telangana and your customers are all over India, then you would definitely be charging them IGST because it's an interstate transaction. Merely because your customers are in different states does not require you to take a GST registration in all those states. Since you are based out of Telangana, it is adequate if you take one GST registration in the state of Telangana. The next question is, how many registrations can I take in a single state? Here it is very important to note that the concept of business vertical is long gone. If you want more than one registration in the same state, you are free to do so. So if you have a head office in Tirupati and have a branch office in Visakhapatnam, owing to geographical considerations or because they are typically engaged in different activities, you can very well opt for taking more than just one GST registration. Is it mandatory to take two separate GST registrations for the head office and factory or godown? The answer is also again up to you. The law does not compel you to take as many registrations. The decision is also up to you. The law does not compel you to take any number of registrations. If you wish to operate your head office, your factory, your godown, which are all in the same state, from a single GST registration, that is also possible. If you wish to bifurcate each of your business place and take 3 separate registrations, that is also possible. The next question is, do I have to take a separate GST registration under the CGST Act, SGST Act, IGST Act and so on and so forth? The answer is a big no. It is adequate if you take one GST registration and the legal machinery is provisioning enough to accommodate this registration across all the statutes. The next question is, I'm exclusively engaged in import-export business. Do I still have to take a GST registration? The answer is yes. Due to the provisions of aggregate turnover and the concept of interstate supply, even if you engage in purely import-export transactions also, you would be required to take a GST registration. Next up is whether PAN is mandatory to take a GST registration. The answer is a big yes. GST number is PAN based. So if you do not have a PAN number, you essentially can't even apply for GST registration, except in cases where certain United Nations bodies and government organizations are given a UIN. But for rest of the country, the rest of the taxpayers, PAN is a mandate. Once I apply for a GST registration, how long does it take for me to get a GST registration? The answer is quite twisted. Your GST registration application is set to be completed, applied for, received by the portal, acknowledged by the portal only when you get an ARN, application reference number, which usually takes 15 minutes of time once your registration application is submitted with the DSC online. Once you get an ARN, it means your registration application has been accepted by the portal. And the time of 3 working days gets triggered from the time you receive an ARN. So if your registration application is 100% accurate, perfect, complete, without any hidden information or without any confusion, then you will get a GST registration within 3 working days. But in instances where your registration application is quite ambiguous or it is a little confusing and misleading, then obviously the officers sitting on the other end of the interface are not convinced with your registration application. They will come back to you with a query, which is often called as a show cause notice, asking you to give more information or asking you to clarify some additional points. So once you get this query, you have 7 days of time to respond to the query by giving them the required information. And once you respond to the query, the officers get another 7 days of time to review your response and then sanction a GST registration certificate. Here, a more vigilant point that has to be noted is that you will be given a query only once. So in instances where you get a query, yet you choose to respond it inadequately, or you confuse the officer even more, or you do not give the officer the required information that he wants, then your GST registration application is going to be rejected altogether. Next up is what are the measures to be exercised once I get my GST registration certificate. This is quite interesting because many people miss out on this step. So once you get a GST registration certificate, it is important, it is crucial, it is cardinal to ensure that this particular GST registration certificate is properly displayed at a prominent place of business in both your principal place of business as well as in all your additional places of business. It is all the more important to ensure that your company or organization's name board has its GST number stuck or printed or painted on it. So anybody who looks at your name board knows what is your GST number. Anybody who walks into your office is able to see what is your GST certificate. And these small measures help in preventing long-drawn penalty-ridden litigations. Now let us see what are the common mistakes that people do while applying for this GST registration. Resultantly, your GST registration application becomes a long-drawn process. The first and foremost is choosing the correct center and state jurisdiction, and this is where all of us most commonly go wrong. So here what you have to know is that the GST portal, while you apply for a GST registration, is going to have an external source linking that will tell you in which commissionerate you have to take a GST registration, which division you fall under, what is going to be your range. So depending upon the proximity of your address to the options that are available, it is advised to choose an appropriate and applicable jurisdiction. Another important checkpoint that people often miss or mess rather is where you do not write a proper reason for taking a GST registration. So let's say you're taking a GST registration voluntarily, then it is not much of a problem. But suppose if you're taking a GST registration because you have attracted the triggering event, then it is all the more important for you to mention the date on which this trigger event has applied. Since you are going to apply for the GST registration within 30 days from the date of trigger, you want to have a backdated GST registration effective date that will give you the ITC benefits of the stock in hand as on that date. So while filling the registration application, if you are doing so because of the trigger date, make sure that the trigger date is known to the system. Another hard learning lesson of applying for numerous GST registrations and getting innumerable queries is the information about the director details to be given for a company. More often than not, people have this tendency that while applying for GST registration, they will give details of only 1 or 2 directors who also happen to be either the authorized signatory or the authorized representative, and think that after I get a GST registration, I'll apply for an amendment. But that is unfortunately not going to be the case. The GST officers who are going to review your GST registration certificate at the back end are going to match the director details that you give with the signatory details that is appearing in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs database. So when I compare both the portals and I see that as per MCA you have 6 directors, but while applying for GST registration you have given information about only 2, then this is going to be one of the primordial reasons why I wish not to pursue your registration application any further, and in sometimes the registration applications do get rejected because of this. This effectually means there is happening a suppression of fact. Another cardinal area of long delay in GST registration is because you do not give proper address proof. The portal is quite straightforward. The expectation of the authorities is also quite straightforward. They want to know, they want to understand how you or your organization are related to that particular premise. In case you have taken it on lease, give the lease deed. In case you yourself own it, then you give the property tax receipt or the electricity bill. In most instances, it so happens that the property belongs to your friend or your spouse or your family members, and there is no formal lease deed that you have entered. In such a case, it is important that you get an NOC from that particular family member or a friend to establish that the property belongs to them but it has been leased out to you. It is even the more important that you establish the lineage or the linkage of how they own the property and how the property has come to you. So it is better to go one step further to give the property tax receipt or the electricity bill in their name to establish that it is a case of subcontract or a sublease. Another important area where people go wrong while applying for a GST registration is in the matter of additional place of business. People often have a tendency to avoid giving this information in the initial GST registration stage and think that they will make a core field amendment once they get a GST registration certificate. And this activity forever goes on the back burner. The most important litigation that is drawn in the recent times is that all the credit that has been availed at these additional places of business will become ineligible, will become irregular, merely because of the fact that this additional place of business is not evidently seen in your GST registration certificate. So a word of caution is that if you have an additional place of business which you wish to tag to the same GST registration in a same state, then it is advisable that you give the details of this additional place of business at the very same stage of applying for a GST registration. An important change that has happened in the GST registration application process is that you are no longer required to give a bank detail information at the preliminary stage of applying for registration itself. Bank detail information can also be given after you have obtained a GST registration certificate as a first activity. After that only you can proceed to file your returns or apply refunds or whatever you want. So there go these points of caution. So apply these points, exercise discretion and vigilance as to when you should take, when you need not take, and how soon to apply for a GST registration to ensure that your GST registration activity is a smooth, hassle-free activity. Happy GSTing!